Alonso versus Schumacher will be fascinating today. We understand they're carrying roughly the same amount of fuel, and you can see Michael Schumacher starting from the dirty side of the track. In the GP2 race, it didn't seem to be too much of a handicap for people. They still managed to find grip down that pit wall side. But the two Renaults, as you can see up there, their best qualifying performance since Montreal. And they and the BMWs, the only teams really that had parity really of driver performance. A lot of other teams saw a big differential between the way their drivers performed. We haven't really seen what McLaren can do. They were poor in qualifying yesterday. I understand maybe Raikkonen carrying more fuel, but how many times have we said that? And it's turned out not to be the case. Klian, his best qualifying performance for 12 races. Truly outside the top 10. You see Barrichello and Rosberg were struggled yesterday during the qualifying session, couldn't get themselves into the top 10. Ralf Schumacher did a good job in the Toyota. He was always in the top 5 throughout qualifying and had to drop 10 places because he changed an engine, but he's got a quick car under him. Being told that Schumacher's the only one of the front runners who's starting this race on brand new tyres. Looks to me as though Barrichello further back is using a new set, but of the front runners, we understand that Massa and Alonso are going off the line on a used set of tyres, so they're going to get the performance advantage of a new set later on.
Okay, Felipe, let's get the brakes warm and the tyres warm, exactly as we discussed. Need to get the brake temperatures up. They're quite low at the minute. They're around about 300, so let's get brake warming and tyre warming.
Nice to have Ferrari team radio. Those of you who follow the season with us here on ITV will know that Ferrari have not let us in on their radio. Of course, we're not the host broadcasters here. Bernie Ecclestone's FOM TV are the host broadcasters, but Ferrari and Ross Brawn in particular have finally been persuaded to open up the radio, so that could be quite interesting for the course of this Grand Prix.
Coming to a critical point of this year's World Championship.
The start, watch out for Schumacher on the right, Massa on the left, Alonso behind him, they get away. Now, the other Toyota, and that's Ralf Schumacher coming through. I think Trulli caught him, so Fisichella's spin caused by Alonso getting out of shape, trying to get around Michael Schumacher, and now Alonso still attacking Schumacher hard as they make their way through. Massa trying to pull away at the front, and it looked as though in the initial pull away, Alonso had the momentum, but Schumacher kept his foot in and was strong. Massa leads it, Michael Schumacher is second, Alonso's third. Brilliant start for Mark Webber in the Williams. He's up in the 4th place from 9th or 10th on the grid. Button is 5th. Heidfeld has dropped right down to 14th place. Rosberg has had an extraordinary start as well. He is up into 6th place, having started 14th on the grid, Martin.
Yeah, it was really amateur hour down into the first corner. Sure, Fisichella spins, and the rest of them start tripping over each other totally unnecessarily. And Fisichella's new nose and front wing being ready. It takes about a dozen seconds to get that on. He's got to make his way round. He'll lose another 10 to 15 seconds. Heidfeld, who we were just talking to on the grid, also lost his nose in the middle of that, and it did allow people to get through, such as Rosberg and Webber. Best for the Williams, and that's Kubica getting passed by Antonio Liuzzi into turn 12.
It just shows you what the chaos of a spin amongst front runners does. It allows people who've qualified 16th, 17th on the grid to come through and be challenging for points positions. Liuzzi is in 7th place. He was 18th on the grid. Raikkonen's got a puncture. Left rear tyre for Kimi Raikkonen.
There will be the front wing end fence that damaged that, and we've got two Toyotas, a Toyota and a Super to slice your tyres despite their best efforts. Fisichella then, well, it's way too early to gain any advantage by putting too much fuel in, and they're struggling with that right front. Is not ready to go. It's all going horribly wrong for Fisichella. Heidfeld, can they make a better job of that? And they're changing the tyres, I suspect, just for safety in case there's a shard of carbon fibre or something. There's no need to change them otherwise. A lot of debris on the racetrack there, and that is very dangerous. When a Formula 1 tyre hits that at 150 to 200 miles an hour, it can damage the carcass of the tyre.
Yeah, they can be very sharp, the shards of debris. There's Ron Dennis looking at his man come in. Kimi Raikkonen's in, Ted Kravitz.
Yeah, they've actually got a rear wing, a spare rear wing ready. They're having a very good look at it. Dave Redding, the operations director, the engineering boss, just having a quick look. They're not too happy about it, and they've got trouble on the rear wheels as well. They're just having a look. What can they do? No, this is bad. This is really bad for Kimi Raikkonen, losing so much time already. They have put new tyres on. Ron Dennis getting involved as well, but it looks like the axle, something wrong with the left rear tyre, James.
I think from the camera angle we could see, Ted, it was the canvas and material from the tyre that was wrapped around the rear upright. But a flailing tyre like that does a lot of damage to the under train and the rear wing end fenders. It can be critical.
Another look at the start. What's Schumacher cutting across to the left to cut Alonso off, who at this point is in front.
Yeah, Ferrari have improved their start. Alonso turned in expecting Schumacher not to be there, suddenly realised he was. I don't know if Fisichella got a helping hand there at all, but then all hell lets loose behind, and just clumsy driving going on there. And that then, it must be, that's Raikkonen in the wall, so he's had some kind of failure then, and that looks like a pretty big accident, although with the conveyor belt there and the old tyres, it shouldn't have damaged him at all. But quite clearly there was extra damage to that McLaren from the first corner incident.
Ironically, one of the few tyres that is left on it is the new left rear that was put on after that incident to start. So Raikkonen looks like he's going to get nothing out of this one.
Presumably that's a replay of his first incident with that left rear flailing. But because it's not the left rear that's off, with the car in the wall, he appeared to have at least four. Now this is going to be a replay then. I'm pretty sure it was clean. DC was quite a bit further back on the grid. He came steaming through with his front brakes all locked up. Kimi did the smart thing and just got out of it and gave everybody space. I need to have somebody run into the back of him. That's the problem going into turn one. You've got to be aggressive to an extent, otherwise you'll be run into. If you're too aggressive, you run into somebody else. And it's a very fine line with a car that's got very hot rear tyres, having lifted them up off the start, coolish front tyres, very cold brakes compared to their normal operating temperature, and a good fuel load on board. The car simply doesn't want to stop down into turn one. You're hero to zero in a fraction of a second as to how you get on the brake pedal.
So two consecutive non-finishes for Kimi Raikkonen, and McLaren have only 4 more races in this season in order to win one, and it's been 10 years since they went through a whole season without winning a Grand Prix. I'm sure they don't want that little piece of history on their side, but still, Raikkonen quite bullish about his chances in the remaining races. Change that one, isn't it? Because in Hungary he had the same thing. You remember, he suddenly lost 3 seconds in one lap, and that was when he found neutral by mistake. Nothing wrong with the car, it's just the way it happened. But definitely on lap 3 he lost 3 seconds. He was 3 seconds behind Michael Schumacher, and then suddenly it was 6, and now it's 7. So Massa leading the Grand Prix. Michael Schumacher goes faster again, 1:28 in 7:91, the first man to break into the 1:28. He's pushing hard. Here's Michael Schumacher. Alonso's third, 7 seconds behind Schumacher, and just 5 seconds behind Alonso, as he has been, and matching him on pace at the moment is the winner of the previous Grand Prix, Jenson Button, looking strong again in 4th place. 5th is Mark Webber, 12 seconds behind Button. And then it's Kubica, who dropped back a little bit off the back of Webber. He made a mistake in turn 8 a couple of laps ago, and that cost him a second or two. So he's in 6th place. Rosberg is still having a tremendous drive in 7th, having started 14th on the grid. And Christian Klien, who's told a couple of weeks ago he's been dropped by Red Bull Racing for next year. He'll be replaced by Mark Webber, driving for his career here. The shop window, trying to get someone to give him a job for next year. He's currently 8th in the Red Bull.
3 retirements then, and the spinner Liuzzi in the Toro Rosso. Looks like they've gone for the rear wheel spats as well. But Liuzzi really not covered himself in glory this year too much, and that's not going to help either. At the moment, 3 retirements, because Heidfeld rejoined the race when he changed the nose, although he's 19th and last at the moment. Raikkonen, we know, suspension damage after a rear tyre puncture. Sato and Montero both retired.
Here's a quick look at how it happened from Tonio Liuzzi. A simple round he goes, but unfortunately stalled the engine and couldn't move it. So we've got a safety car here at Istanbul. All of the front 6 made their pit stops, but of course with Massa in the lead on the racetrack, it meant that Michael Schumacher, Martin, had to queue up behind him, and crucially that allowed Renault and Alonso, who only had to service Alonso, to get the jump.
As Michael hovered behind the pit as long as he could, and then as soon as they released Massa, he could go in.
One says you can't overtake in Formula 1, but we are 21 laps into this Grand Prix, and we've already seen a load of overtaking. There's a good example of it. Rubens Barrichello and Trulli. You have a long straight into a slow corner. You have a left-hander at the end of it. If your next corner's a right-hander, it means the man who's been passed can have a go back again. It's exactly what happens here.
Yeah, well, we said you've got to... a moment ago we were saying you've got to go in deep and hard, but take your opponent with you. I mean, Rubens did the Dan Dare bit, but didn't take his opponent with him. Incident on board with Ralf Schumacher having a run at Kubica and going round the outside, and very nicely done too.
Ralf Schumacher up into 12th place. Kubica's lost a few places recently, as maybe he would not have made a stop, but that's all ifs and buts and conjecture. The facts of the matter are that in his 67th Grand Prix start, Massa is leading it. That is Yamamoto, who out-qualified teammate Sato yesterday in the Super Aguri. This car now has its full aero pack on it and the new gearbox and everything. It is the full new car for Super Aguri, and that's why Sato rejoined. It's using it as an extended test session, but his teammate Yamamoto looks like he's out of this race.
Well, it's on the outside of turn 1, just as Antonio Liuzzi's Toro Rosso was, although it's off the racetrack and off the racing line. The marshals can't move that. They may choose to throw the safety car out again, but it doesn't look as perilous as Liuzzi's car, has to be said. Massa leads by, and he's just moved into lap 25. He now leads by 4.4 seconds. There's the waved yellow, so you cannot overtake going down into turn 1 and 16. This is Yamamoto. Got him wide, got the right rear tyre on the dirty side of the racetrack. Anti-stall didn't kick in by the looks of it. Got out of shape on the bumps on the way into the corner.
Around he goes. Nice look at the aerodynamic tweaks on this new Super Aguri. They've had an eventful first season in Formula 1. There's another look at Ralf Schumacher. Passing down into turn 12. Terrific camera angle there, the switchback. Pure unreliability. Unbelievable.
Massa does a new fastest lap of the race. He knows he's going to have to drive for his life if he's going to beat Alonso this afternoon. And Rosberg, very smartly realising that Coulthard was coming in for a scheduled pit stop, got out of his way in the pit lane, which was good and fair driving. And it was truly who pitted actually for Toyota. Rosberg pits, as we know, for a terminal engine problem.
Yeah, he's lost the water pressure, and without water, the engine will do absolutely nothing. Shame that was a terrific performance by Rosberg. Took advantage of the chaos at the start to go from, what was he, 14th on the grid, and he was 5th when just losing the place to De La Rosa when he retired.
Just a replay there, Rosberg keeping good eye on his mirrors. He's a bright lad, and even in that disappointing moment, still had his wits about him. The bad news for Button is that releases De La Rosa now to start catching him. He's just 4.5 seconds adrift and lapping quite a bit more quickly than Jenson Button. So the Honda team are about to have a headache in a few more laps' time. Fisichella was catching Coulthard very quickly indeed, made a mistake and dropped back, but is now coming back at David Coulthard, although of course Coulthard's pitted.
Here's Michael Schumacher at turn 8, and he's got it wrong there.
Yeah, big time, and he didn't, he realised he tried to come back on across the grass and had a sensible pill and went back onto the runoff area. Here he goes there, realised that's going to damage his car, back onto the runoff area. Now there's a little green lane down there that you can just get back onto the racetrack. That cost him 4 seconds. Michael Schumacher having a scruffy weekend, but he's still got a very fast car underneath him. New fastest lap of the race for Felipe Massa on a 1:28.4. Another fast man though, Fisichella now for P6 on a 1:28.7.
Test of character here for Schumacher. There's Barrichello flashing past Christian Albers. That's a pass for 10th place. So we are halfway through this enthralling Turkish Grand Prix at Istanbul Park. Massa leading Alonso, Schumacher trailing in 3rd.
Yes, he's got about, I think, probably nearer 28 seconds as Ralf Schumacher lines up another candidate around the outside of turn 12. He's made it work a couple of times and make that 3. That's perfect. That's so unusual to see an F1 car with enough grip around the outside of what is effectively a hairpin corner. Nice stuff, I enjoyed that.
Here he comes, the race leader. He just did a 1:28.1. Alonso did a 1:28.2, and Schumacher did a 1:28.3 on the last lap. That's how closely matched they are. He had a 9-second cushion over Alonso, who will take the lead of this race. Schumacher will go second. Ted Kravitz.
To the garage as well. A nice stop from Ferrari, and no problems with Massa's tyres, I've got to say. So, that's very quick. That's very quick indeed from Fernando Alonso. 7-7, just staying with the second two-stop strategy.
So just to correct myself there, Alonso pitted at the same time, so he did not take the lead of this race. He opted to stop at the same time as Massa. So Michael Schumacher is leading this race. Jenson Button has pitted from 4th place at the same time, just behind Massa and Alonso did it, and so did Albers from 9th.
Right, how much further and faster can Michael Schumacher go now? He certainly was pitted for a long time, remember. That's how Alonso cleared him, although he had to queue up behind his teammate. And it looks like Barrichello still fighting a rearguard action there against Mark Webber, who pits anyway. But can Michael now pump in 2 or 3 fast laps while Alonso is heavily fueled? But he had a 7.2-second deficit anyway. I don't think it'll be enough to get the job done.
That is the magic number as Mark Webber comes in from 7th place. 7 seconds was the difference between Alonso and Michael Schumacher when Alonso came in and made that stop. So that's the margin that Michael Schumacher has got to find now between now and his own second stop. He's got to find 7 seconds.
Right, this is why Barrichello was having a rearguard action. He went wide in turn 8 and Webber actually passed him. Repassed him. It's not turn 8, sorry, it's turn 4, 5 out there. That's Webber going back through. And at some point later in the lap, Barrichello came back at him. So I don't know if we're going to stay on board with that. Heading up the hill now towards 8. Yes, on the way down the hill into these big runoff areas. The corners all look the same. It's back down into turn 12 where he passed him a couple of laps before.
Back on board with Webber. Here's another look at Kubica.
That's Kubica running wide then. I think that was just getting on the bumps. And Webber obviously saw that, was well loaded up behind him, and did a carbon copy move, basically. I think they just both got out of shape, coincidentally, on the same lap. Michael Schumacher does a new fastest lap of the race, 1.3 seconds quicker than Alonso's lap, so that's taken a chunk out of the deficit. Will Michael Schumacher have enough in hand to stay out? So I'm just going to say, how much further can Michael Schumacher go? He had 16 seconds plus whatever he gained on this in-lap, closer to him.
Alonso crosses the start-finish line now. He's heading towards turn 1. So is Schumacher at reduced speed. There is Alonso, and there is Schumacher, and there goes second place, I guess it would be at the moment in this Grand Prix, because don't forget, Felipe Massa is in front.
Yeah, and of course it's a net 4 points we're talking about here in the World Championship. If Michael gets ahead of him, at the moment he's losing 2 to Alonso, he'll be gaining 2. A bundle of understeer there for Fernando Alonso. That car didn't look good at all. What's Michael Schumacher going to have underneath him? We're on lap 44. Massa leads from Alonso and Schumacher. Alonso really struggling. Michael in the dirty air though, behind the Renault. And has he blistered one of those Michelins, or what is it? Suddenly Alonso very slow under braking. They're 10.8 seconds off the lead now. Massa leads on lap 47.
Their pace is okay, very low, 1 minute 30, the same pace as Felipe Massa, who's just measuring himself at the front and just listening to what the team tell him about these two and what they're up to. They're not as quick as they were a few laps ago, but certainly at the moment, Alonso, as I say, lapping around 130. And he was talking just the other day about how much he enjoys battling with Michael Schumacher. There's a lot of respect there. They have a lot of fun when they go out to race against each other. We've seen quite a bit of needle and one-upmanship in the last few Grand Prix. They're always trying to outdo each other, but it's all great fun between them. And there's a lot riding on this one, though, from Michael Schumacher's point of view, because bear in mind, it's not just about points here. It's about Schumacher's decision on his future. He wanted to go to Monza knowing he'd won a race, had a good chance of winning this World Championship. This is complicating the picture for Schumacher. He needs to get in front of Alonso, because if he does, you can bet your bottom dollar he'll very quickly get in front of Massa. As the situation stands, it's 10 points between them. We've got a car off down there on the right-hand side. It's Albers in the MF1. Looks like he's safely out of the car, though, but waved yellow flags down in that zone. As we take another look at Michael Schumacher getting very close to Alonso in turn 7.
This is a replay. Alonso made a mistake down in turn 4, and Schumacher tried to have a run at him. They're heading up to 8. Now, curiously, Schumacher holds a tight line, nearly throws himself off the outside of the corner in a part of the track where Alonso's so fast anyway. That was very much a tactical error there by Michael Schumacher. He should have fallen back into line and kept his position right on the gearbox of Alonso.
Why doesn't he just have a run at Alonso?
Well, right now, with Alonso taking a couple of points off him, he may as well just throw one up the inside. He can't get close enough where it matters. And you've got to be at least in the zone before you sling one up the inside.
The other problem is Alonso can afford a collision that takes them both out of the race. Schumacher cannot afford that.
Well, he can at the moment because Alonso's taking points off him. So they're both in the same situation. But you're right, Alonso would rather have an accident with Michael Schumacher than let him through, I'm sure of that.
And Schumacher knows that 100%. You know why? Because they're cut from the same cloth, these two. They are very similar racers. They love finishing first. Neither of them ever want to finish second to the other. That's a look at how they're finishing from where they were on the grid.
Well, Coulthard's pitted. We thought he had some problems coming up. And this is where Michael's been so much faster. He takes a different line completely to the Renault of Alonso. Now, can he get himself a look at the bottom of the hill here, where he goes in early and supremely late on the brakes? Surely he's going to, no, not quite close enough. He keeps compromising himself. Not his best racecraft going on today, Michael Schumacher. Curious, isn't it? Sometimes he just looks faultless, and this is where he's struggling. Another downshift in the middle of the corner. Normally they're getting ready for an upshift there, and that is so frustrating for him.
Evans is down there in the pits with Ted Kravitz. They have got the upper hand.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And Pat, I mean, our hearts were going. What a result for you. 0.0 seconds the gap over there. Are you still keeping it together?
And an epic battle between Fernando Alonso and Michael Schumacher, in which Alonso takes the all-important second place and regains some advantage in what is becoming a classic Drivers' Championship battle as well. So for the second consecutive Grand Prix, a first-time winner, Felipe Massa for Ferrari, leading home Fernando Alonso, who just kept Michael Schumacher at bay right on the finish line. But another excellent finish for Jenson Button.